Imagine waking up one morning to a letter from your own HOA claiming your centuries-old oak tree was illegal and must be cut down, right in the yard you grew up playing under. For Samuel Turner, this wasn't just a tree. It was family history, a living monument older than the houses surrounding him, older than the HOA itself. The sun broke over Maplewood Estates, a suburb lined with cookie-cutter homes and perfectly trimmed lawns. Samuel Turner sipped his morning coffee on the porch, glancing at the sprawling oak in his front yard. Its massive branches stretched wide, leaves shimmering in gold and green. Samuel remembered when his grandfather had planted it, or at least told him so. Local legend had it that the tree had been there long before the neighborhood developers bought the land. The sound of a car door slamming drew his attention. It was Mrs. Greer, the HOA president, walking briskly up the driveway holding a clipboard. Her heels clicked sharply on the concrete. "Good morning, Samuel," she said, forcing a smile. "We need to talk about your tree." Samuel's chest tightened. He had a feeling this wouldn't be a casual chat. "We've received complaints," Mrs. Greer continued, "that your oak is encroaching on neighboring property lines and poses a safety risk. Per HOA rules, it must be trimmed or removed." Samuel laughed nervously. "Removed? That tree has been here longer than your neighborhood board." Mrs. Greer's smile faltered. "HOA regulations apply to everyone, Samuel. If you don't comply, fines will begin next week. And we may have to involve the city." Samuel felt his stomach drop. The tree wasn't just any tree, it was a landmark, a symbol of generations of Turners. But now, some bureaucratic HOA wanted to saw it down for no reason. He decided to fight back. That afternoon, Samuel called the city's Historical Preservation Office. Within hours, he discovered that the oak was officially recognized as a protected natural landmark, over 150 years old. Cutting it down without a permit would violate city law. The victory felt small, however. The HOA didn't care about city permits. They were relentless. Within days, Samuel started noticing strange things: surveyors walking onto his property unannounced, drones flying over his yard, and letters threatening penalties. It was clear, they intended to intimidate him into compliance. One evening, Samuel's neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, came over with a worried look. "Samuel, I've seen HOA members at night near your yard, measuring something. I think they're plotting something." Samuel nodded grimly. "They want the oak gone. But they don't know who they're dealing with." He spent the night strategizing. The oak wasn't just a tree, it was his heritage, his story, and he was going to defend it. Samuel reached out to local journalists, historians, and even his old lawyer from a previous land dispute. Soon, news cameras were parked across the street, ready to cover whatever would happen next. The HOA, realizing that their small threats were becoming public spectacles, escalated. They sent certified letters, demanding immediate compliance, and threatening to impose daily fines that could bankrupt Samuel. But Samuel had a plan. He knew the law, knew the tree's historical value, and had the support of neighbors who had grown up under the same oak. He wasn't just fighting for a tree, he was fighting for justice, dignity, and legacy. The tension built to a breaking point one stormy night. A chainsaw started humming somewhere in the distance. Samuel's heart raced, someone had trespassed. He grabbed a flashlight and ran outside, only to find nothing, except deep tire tracks near the roots of the oak. Whoever it was had fled, but the message was clear: the HOA wouldn't stop. Samuel thought the city's protection of his oak tree would keep the HOA at bay, but he was about to discover that their fight wasn't just about a tree. It was about control, money, and a long-hidden secret buried in the neighborhood's history. The morning sun barely touched Maplewood Estates when Samuel stepped onto his porch. The air was crisp, tinged with the earthy scent of the oak's fallen leaves. But peace was short-lived. A letter lay on the doorstep, stamped with the HOA's official seal. Samuel opened it slowly. His eyes widened as he read. Dear Mr. Turner, due to ongoing safety concerns and encroachment, the HOA will begin legal proceedings to take ownership of your property. This includes the oak tree and all surrounding land. You have 7 days to comply. 7 days. That was all the time he had. Samuel's mind raced. How could an HOA legally claim ownership over his land? The oak had been there long before the HOA existed. Then a thought struck him, maybe this was not about the tree. Maybe the HOA had found something else on the property, something valuable. Determined to find out, Samuel began digging through public records and old neighborhood maps. Hours later, he stumbled upon something shocking. His property, including the oak, sat atop a small plot legally designated as community land, mistakenly sold by developers decades ago. The HOA thought they could claim it because of a loophole in old property transfers, but the documents were flawed. Realizing this, Samuel knew he needed leverage. He called Elaine Parker, a local real estate attorney known for taking on corrupt HOAs. Elaine came over that afternoon, briefcase in hand. "This is bigger than I thought," she said after reviewing the papers. "They're trying to strong-arm you with outdated records. But if we act fast, we can not only save the oak, we can expose them for harassment." Meanwhile, the HOA was escalating their tactics. Surveillance cameras appeared overnight around Samuel's property, drones hovered during the day, and neighbors reported being approached by HOA members, asking probing questions about Samuel's routines. Samuel's daughter, Lila, noticed a strange man in a van parked across the street. "Dad, I think he's watching us," she whispered. "I know," Samuel said. "They're desperate." That evening, Samuel met with a group of neighbors who had grown up around the oak tree. Mrs. Jenkins, Mr. Rivera, and a few others pledged their support. "This tree is part of all our lives," Mr. Rivera said. "We won't let them take it." The following night, the tension reached a new level. Samuel heard chains dragging across the yard. He grabbed a flashlight and saw 2 men near the oak, measuring its circumference with tape. Before he could confront them, they ran off. But Samuel noticed one left behind a HOA-branded ID badge, proof they were acting under HOA orders. The next morning, Samuel posted photos and videos of the trespassing incident on social media. The local news picked it up, branding it as, "Historic Oak Threatened by Overzealous HOA." Suddenly, Samuel's fight went viral, drawing attention from environmental groups and local historians. Realizing the HOA was losing public favor, Samuel and Elaine devised a counter-strategy. They would file a formal complaint and a restraining order against the HOA members who had trespassed, and simultaneously launch a campaign to officially recognize the oak as a landmark beyond dispute. But the HOA didn't back down. That afternoon, Samuel received a mysterious phone call. The voice was low and hurried. "Turner, you don't know what you're dealing with. That tree isn't just old, it's connected. Be careful." Samuel felt a chill run down his spine. Connected to what? He didn't know yet, but he had a feeling the fight would become much bigger than a simple HOA dispute. Samuel thought he could rely on law, logic, and public support, but sometimes the biggest threats come from inside your own neighborhood. When the HOA escalated, Samuel realized that protecting the oak would require every ounce of courage, cunning, and community solidarity he had. The morning sun had barely pierced the horizon when Samuel noticed a convoy of white trucks rolling onto his street. Surveyors, lawyers, and men in suits, claiming to represent the HOA, marched toward his property with a sense of entitlement that made his blood boil. He stepped outside, ready to confront them. "Can I help you?" he asked calmly. One of the men, a sharply dressed surveyor, waved a sheaf of papers. "These are official documents. The HOA has full authority to assess your property and remove any obstruction, including the oak tree." Samuel took the documents, scanning them carefully. His heart sank. The signatures were familiar, fake, but eerily convincing. Someone had forged them, someone who knew the HOA rules inside out. He felt a chill. Someone on the inside had betrayed him. Turning to his attorney, Elaine, he said, "These are falsified. But they're convincing enough that the court might hesitate if we don't act fast." Elaine nodded grimly. "We need proof. Every document, every correspondence, they'll try to intimidate you. But we can expose them in court if we move strategically." Samuel also realized the importance of community support. He went door to door, gathering signed statements from neighbors who had witnessed HOA harassment. Mrs. Jenkins, Mr. Rivera, and others provided video footage of trespassing and drone surveillance. Meanwhile, the HOA was escalating. Letters arrived daily, threatening fines, penalties, and even claims that Samuel's oak posed a public safety hazard. They hired an arborist to write a report claiming the tree was diseased, false information intended to sway the city council. But Samuel fought back. He reached out to renowned arborists and historical preservation experts, documenting the tree's health and its historical value. Every branch, every leaf became evidence in his growing arsenal. Then came the unexpected betrayal. One evening, Samuel received a text from a neighbor he had trusted for years. "I'm sorry, Sam. I have to follow the HOA's orders. Don't take it personally." It hit him hard. The HOA had infiltrated the neighborhood, convincing some residents to side with them in exchange for minor favors or avoidance of fines. Samuel realized the fight wasn't just legal, it was personal. Determined, he called a press conference. Local reporters arrived, intrigued by the story of a man standing up against bureaucratic overreach. Cameras captured Samuel beneath the sprawling oak, his hands resting on the trunk as he spoke. "This isn't just about me or my property. It's about the rights of every homeowner, every citizen, and the preservation of history in our communities. This tree has witnessed generations. It deserves protection." Public support surged. Social media exploded with likes Save the Oak and Turner vs. HOA. Volunteers arrived, offering to document every interaction and defend the oak physically if necessary. But the HOA's desperation was now palpable. They began sending intimidating letters to Samuel's children's school, claiming the tree posed a risk to public safety. Samuel felt the weight of the battle. Protecting the oak meant protecting his family too. One night, while reviewing documents, Samuel noticed a pattern. The falsified papers bore the initials, RC. Could it be a rogue HOA board member? He made a mental note to investigate. Then came the tipping point. The HOA announced a board meeting to vote on final action against Samuel's property. If the vote passed, it could legitimize their claim and put the oak in immediate danger. Samuel had prepared for legal battles, public outrage, and bureaucratic red tape, but nothing could have prepared him for the midnight showdown that would determine the fate of his oak tree. It was a moonless night when Samuel awoke to a strange sound outside, the crunch of boots against gravel. Instinctively, he grabbed a flashlight and his phone, careful not to alert anyone. Across the yard, near the oak, he saw shadows moving. The unmistakable shapes of HOA contractors, carrying chainsaws and ropes, were attempting to execute what appeared to be an illegal nighttime removal. Heart pounding, Samuel dialed Elaine. "They're here. Right now. They're trying to cut down the oak." Elaine's voice was firm. "Call 911 and document everything. Take videos and photos. We need proof of trespassing and attempted destruction of a protected landmark." Samuel's hands shook, but he obeyed. He recorded every movement, shining the flashlight so that every figure was clearly visible on camera. The contractors paused, looking around nervously. They hadn't expected Samuel to be awake and ready. Suddenly, the ground shook with the roar of an engine. Samuel's neighbor, Mr. Rivera, drove up with his truck, lights flashing. "Back off," he shouted. More neighbors arrived, brandishing flashlights and cameras. The HOA team froze, realizing their intimidation tactic had failed. But then the unexpected twist: one of the contractors revealed the HOA's secret weapon, a permit supposedly authorizing the removal, complete with forged signatures and a fake county seal. Samuel held the phone up, documenting it all. This would be critical evidence in court. Elaine arrived minutes later, sprinting through the yard with legal papers in hand. "I filed a temporary injunction. They cannot touch the tree until the court hears this case." The HOA members hesitated, muttering among themselves. They had underestimated Samuel, his neighbors, and the power of the law in his hands. Slowly, they backed away, disappearing into the night, leaving only tire marks and the faint hum of chainsaws. By dawn, news vans had arrived, tipped off by Samuel's social media posts and local supporters. Reporters captured footage of the oak standing tall, sunlight glinting off its massive branches. Interviews with neighbors painted the HOA as overreaching and unjust, while Samuel's calm, determined demeanor made him a symbol of resilience. Over the next few days, the legal battle intensified. Elaine filed a full complaint exposing the HOA's illegal actions, forged documents, and intimidation tactics. The court scheduled a hearing, and the story began spreading statewide. Environmental groups and historical preservation societies rallied to support Samuel, further pressuring the HOA. The HOA tried one last desperate move, a public smear campaign claiming the oak was diseased and unsafe. Samuel countered with arborist reports, photographs, and expert testimony proving the tree's health and significance. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. Samuel, Elaine, and a team of neighbors walked into the courtroom, ready to face the HOA board. Cameras streamed live, capturing every moment. Samuel took the stand, recounting the history of the oak, the HOA's harassment, and the significance of preserving community landmarks. Elaine presented the evidence. Falsified permits and documents. Video footage of trespassing contractors. Expert testimonies about the oak's age, health, and historical importance. Community statements supporting Samuel. The judge listened intently. After hours of deliberation, she delivered the verdict. The HOA's actions are illegal, harassing, and without merit. Mr. Turner's oak tree is protected under city and state law. The HOA is ordered to cease all interference immediately and is liable for all legal fees incurred by Mr. Turner. The courtroom erupted. Samuel felt a rush of relief and triumph. He stepped outside, sunlight bathing the oak in gold. Neighbors cheered, and reporters swarmed, capturing the moment. The oak had survived. Justice had prevailed. As Samuel touched the rough bark, he whispered to the tree, "We did it. We stood together. You're safe now." The oak had survived the storm of intimidation, threats, and forged documents, but Samuel knew the fight wasn't just about one tree. It was about justice, accountability, and leaving a lasting legacy for the community. With the court ruling in his favor, Samuel thought the battle was over. But Elaine reminded him, "We've won the tree, Samuel, but the HOA's corruption runs deep. If we stop now, they'll just find another victim." Samuel nodded. The fight had revealed a web of mismanagement, forged documents, and harassment that extended far beyond his own yard. Many residents had been quietly paying fines, intimidated by the board. It was time to expose the truth fully. He began by gathering evidence, old meeting minutes, financial records, and copies of all the forged documents. Elaine connected him with investigative journalists, who started digging into the HOA's history. Soon, articles and video segments exposed the pattern of abuse, board members using their positions to intimidate homeowners, falsify records, and profit from compliance fees. At the same time, Samuel and neighbors worked to legally restructure the HOA, pushing for new elections and rules that would prevent future abuses. The community rallied behind him, volunteers helping to rewrite bylaws and hold meetings that were transparent and inclusive. One evening, as Samuel stood under the oak with Lila and neighbors, he reflected on how far they'd come. "This tree, it's more than just wood and leaves," he said. "It's a symbol of resilience. Of standing up for what's right. Local news captured the moment, highlighting Samuel's role in turning a personal fight into a movement for accountability in HOA governance. Social media exploded with stories of people inspired by his courage. Save the Oak became more than a hashtag, it became a rallying cry for justice. The final twist came when the court approved civil penalties against the corrupt HOA board members, holding them financially responsible for their illegal actions. Some were removed from office, and others faced fines or criminal charges for forgery and harassment. Samuel's victory had consequences far beyond the Oak, it was a community-wide reckoning. Months later, the neighborhood held a celebration under the oak tree, inviting local officials, journalists, neighbors, and friends. Children played in its shade, neighbors shared stories, and Samuel gave a short speech. This tree has stood for generations, witnessing our joys, our struggles, and our victories. Today, it reminds us that standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, can change everything. Let this oak be a reminder, justice may be slow, but it is never impossible. The camera panned upward, capturing the towering branches, golden leaves rustling in the wind, sunlight streaming through the canopy. For Samuel, Lila, and the community, the oak wasn't just saved, it was immortalized as a symbol of courage, unity, and justice. As night fell, Samuel sat on the porch, sipping his coffee. The oak loomed nearby, serene and unyielding. He smiled, knowing that the fight had strengthened not only his family and community but had also set a precedent for homeowners everywhere. And though the HOA had tried to destroy what they didn't understand, the oak remained, a living testament to perseverance, integrity, and the power of standing together.